Hello, you're listening to My Pop 5, a pop culture podcast about people. In our show, we bring on guests to break down 5 pieces of pop culture that had an influence on them or shaped them to help become the people that they are today. Whether that's a favorite movie or TV show, a song or record that got you through a tough time, or maybe even your favorite book today. My name's Ryan, and I started the show because I've always felt that every single person has an interesting story to tell. I know that for me, it's impossible to tell that story without also explaining the ways that I've been shaped by the things that I love. I learned that this is true for all of our guests, too. This show is hosted primarily by me, but you'll also hear from our producers Daniel and Brianna, and a couple other friends along the way. In this first episode, you'll hear from me and a great friend of mine, Veronica. She'll be involved with the show from time to time, and we interview a wonderful person by the name of Ty. I'll present one caveat before we begin. This episode was recorded prior to the pandemic, and so there are a couple topics that we cover that, in hindsight, we probably would be discussing a little bit differently had we recorded today. But there's still so much in the episode that I felt was too good to lose and redo. So without further ado, here's the first episode, and thank you so much for listening. All right, we are here with Ty Chiko, one of my good friends. We met in college at the University of New Mexico. He's a brilliant singer. He's from the Bahamas. He's got a interesting story, and we're happy to have you here, Ty. So, Ty, why don't you please start by telling us what your Pop 5 is with no comment, no context. What is your Pop 5?
Anything BET, John Legend, Gordon Ramsay, Ellen DeGeneres, and what does this last thing say? Oh, Sidney Poitier.
So you can't even read your own handwriting.
Your own beautiful handwriting.
Well, thank you. You're too kind.
So, Ty, thank you so much for coming out all the way to Los Angeles from Phoenix. We're super happy to have you.
Oh, I'm glad to be here, man. Thank you for having me on the show.
You're one of my best friends in the whole world, so it was super important to have you on as one of our first guests here.
Oh, thank you.
So why don't we start here? I'm really interested in, the things that have had an impact on your life. And it sounds like these 5 things, well, I've had run-ins with them. They're super personal to each individual. So first one on your list, BET. Why don't you tell us a bit about how you came across BET and kind of how it had an impact on who Ty is?
BET, Black Entertainment Television. Growing up, I lived in a household with about, 12 people. My grandma took care of myself and my family, and I grew up with a lot of teenagers in the house, and we'd always watch like the Wayans Brothers and the Steve Harvey Show. It was just a lot of like television that made you feel as if you were in your own home. Yeah, it was great. So BET was definitely the thing that you saw it on TV that made you feel as if, okay, there's representation of what you live in your own life. And then you had like the music videos. So you had Music Soul Child, Missy Elliott, whoever you can think of was all on BET. And obviously one of the names on my list, John Legend, I also saw him on BET. So all those cats.
So yeah, what was like television programming like in the Bahamas? Is it similar to US, or is everything that's airing in the US also running at the same time in the Bahamas?
Yeah, it's my country is very Americanized. In many ways, we're very lucky to have that because you kind of know, especially for me, knowing that I was going to move to the United States, I kind of knew what to expect just based on what I saw on TV. We do have our own like local networks for our news and all of that stuff, but the majority of our television is American-based television. And so you had your VH1, your CNN, MTV, all the regular.
So how old were you when you first came across BET?
How old was I? I was probably watching BET age when I should not have been watching BET. Because there was also this comedy show. I can't remember the name of it. And it was pretty vulgar. And it was all stand-up comedy, and I remember it being like 11 o'clock at night and I should be in bed, but I'm just watching with my eyes glued to the TV, watching these comics just tell jokes that my young ears should not have heard. But yeah, I've probably been watching BT about 8 or 9 years old. So it's been a long time.
So at that time, you mentioned that one of the most important things to you was like the fact that you were able to see, representation of both your race and, the culture that was, important to you and the big family that you had. Do you think you were, cognizant of that at the time? Did you notice a huge contrast compared to some of the other stuff that was happening on television, or was it something that only later that you realized the impact that it had?
Definitely not at the time. I mean, it was comforting to see, because I come from a country where I am the majority.
Yeah.
So to see the same race on television was just a normal thing until I moved to the United States, when I realized that I wasn't the majority, and to have that representation, to see that in America, that you're not the majority in America, it was kind of a wake up call, you know.
How old were you when you moved to the US?
I moved to the US for college, so I had just turned 20.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a big shock.
Yeah.
What was it like growing up in the Bahamas?
Oh, there are two sides of my childhood in the Bahamas. There was the side where I grew up with my grandmother, and I grew up on a very slow-paced island. So like I mentioned before, there were about 10 to 12 people in my house at one time, and we all lived together. You would probably fit 6 people in a bedroom to sleep. You just found a place to sleep at night. And as some people might see that as like a bad thing, but I grew up with that and I loved it. I loved being in a space with family, because it was so homey. It was so connective. And one thing that we all looked forward to in my household growing up was Monday nights for WWF Raw.
Oh, that's so funny.
So we'd all just sit by the TV and just watch wrestling, wait for The Rock to come out, and just kind of like go crazy. And it was a very community driven family. And I love that about growing up in the Bahamas. So that was my younger years, like elementary school, etc. When I went to high school, I went to the capital, Nassau. And Nassau is almost completely different from the other island that's called Eleuthera. I didn't mention that. But Nassau is kind of like going to the city, going to like the heart of a town. And you have your bigger buildings, your commercialization, your fast-paced life. But it also came with its struggles, because there were so many people, which meant that there was crime, there was more visible poverty. I would say that my best experience in the Bahamas was when I lived on the island that was very slow paced. I remember growing up, and even when it came to like the way we ate, when I grew up in elementary school, I remember very often a fisherman would come to our door and knock, "Do you want some fresh fish for dinner?" Mm-hmm. Right? It was that kind of situation. Mm-hmm. Where when I moved to Nassau, the capital, it was very much got to go to the fast food restaurant to get food. Got to go to KFC.
It's like westernized.
Westernized. Yeah. So there was quite a difference in culture even between the islands.
And when you went to Nassau, was that primarily just for schooling, or what prompted the transition?
Schooling, and to move in with my mother, because I grew up with my grandma on Eleuthera. Like that was kind of just a thing that people did. Your grandparents raised you, and my mom was kind of getting her career sorted out. We couldn't afford to live with her then, but we always had a really deep connection regardless. Mm-hmm. So when I went to high school, that was the primary reason, just to go to high school. Mm-hmm. Because the better education for high school was on the capital island of Nassau.
And what did mom do?
My mother was a banker. She retired. She was a banker for about 30 plus years. Dad is a musician. And so that's where I get my musical skills from. And
right.
So yeah.
Your dad was in a pretty cool musical band. What band was that again?
My dad was in the Baha Men, the guys who sang "Who Let the Dogs Out."
Here we are.
Yeah.
Dropping that knowledge.
So, Who Let the Dogs Out? Your dad was not a part of that, though.
He was not a part of that song, because the Baha Men, they were around since the early 90s. Mm-hmm. And then I think that song came out in the early 2000s. Mm-hmm. So, but like I said, the band has been around for many years.
Okay.
And he was their lead guitarist for quite a while.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
One of the songs I think I do remember, based on, there was one time you had a pool party, right? Mm-hmm. And you've always been one to just be a curator of content, which I think is super cool, right? You're always taking photos or videos, and it's very communal. When we had like artist hangouts, and there was time where at the music department, we all had like a pool party, and then immediately after the pool party, it seemed like the second I got home, there was already a video with the song attached with the whole day's pool events, And one of the songs is Gin and Coconut Water.
That's right.
Your dad was a part of that Baha Men song, right?
That's right. He was a part of that. And interesting story was that their music video for that song, my mom was one of the background, I wouldn't say dancer, but she was a background,
like a party person?
Party person in the song.
Did they know each other?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how they met.
And then 9 months later.
Because of Gin and Coconut Water.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So when you moved with your mom, was BET still going on? Or, I know you said you started at 9 or 10, but transferred with her at high school, or had you kind of moved past the BET stages?
No, I was still very much in the BET stage because then it was me, my mom, and my sister primarily. And my sister was a huge BET fanatic. So, and whatever my sister wanted to watch on TV, I had to watch on TV because she's 7 years older than I am. And
She won.
Right? And so everything we did, anything that we wanted to do, it was almost like her choice. Not to say that that was a bad thing, because she made some pretty good choices. I really enjoyed watching BET. Like I fell in love with the original Steve Harvey show before he became a talk show host. He actually had a TV show.
He was a principal in that show?
He was a
Or
teacher.
Yeah, I remember. I would watch that
Yeah.
after school. So good.
It's such a good show. And then the Wayans brothers, Sean and Marlon Wayans, they had their TV show. What else is there? There was the Jamie Foxx show.
Yeah, Jamie.
Right?
Girlfriends.
There was in Living Single and Living Color.
And Living Color,
Those
yeah.
two shows were also on BT. And yeah, so I grew up watching all that stuff, man. And
Yeah, you mentioned Living Single, and I just was thinking about for all the Friends fans out there, right?
Right.
Ross just came out with the actor for Ross or whatever. There was an article that came out that basically was saying, "Oh, David Schwimmer says that it would be awesome if there was a Friends style reboot that was, for an all black cast or an all Asian cast, and it's just like everyone was like, Friends was already ripped off of Living Single, and so it's just being completely unaware of the fact that it was already a narrative that was just being stolen. I do have questions. I know you mentioned that it wasn't until you were older and in America that you kind of noticed being a minority in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Some of what I know the drawback has been with BET critic perspective is the fact that, there are stereotypes and, racism justifications that people are taking from the BET network existing. Did you notice any sort of change in your perspective when you moved and kind of were able to look back at it?
I appreciate BET for what it was worth. The more representation you can have from minority cultures, the better.
Yeah.
So my perspective hasn't changed about the way I felt about the network. I believe that I think even more highly of it now because you look at Tyler Perry, and now you have BET Plus, where you can access old television shows through streaming networks. I think that's incredible. And I wish that other cultures would also embrace this idea that you can have your own culture's identity displayed on a major platform. I hope I'm answering your question. I guess, and I don't have one horse in the race, right.
But I guess like some of doing research on it, a lot of the criticism was that like, especially from the black population, was that a lot of the content that was coming out, and Tyler Perry included, it was playing into stereotypes that already existed and highlighting stereotypes instead of saying that, hey, we are not just a stereotype,
I see.
And I don't know if you got that or have seen that in the content that you were viewing, or as you were able to look back on it and have a different perspective when you came to the U.S.
I guess my counter question would be then, how many stereotypes are actually stereotypes, and how many of them are actually like real?
This is what it is,
yeah. But we just don't want to say that that's what it is. I don't know. So I don't know. That's
okay. No, I guess nothing needs an answer. I just wasn't sure if you kind of had a different perspective. So when did you first start singing and getting an interest in music?
I knew that I wanted to sing, and I didn't know in what capacity. That I knew that I wanted to sing in the 11th grade, and I know this specific date because something specific happened. I was at school, and I remember seeing the newspaper, and the newspaper had an ad saying the Bahamas National Youth Choir auditions this Tuesday. And I don't know what came over me. I went home and I showed my mom, and I'm like, I want to audition for this choir. And she was like, what? Like,
did you or anybody know that you could sing before that?
Not
like,
that
had you done it in the community or?
Never, nothing.
Interesting.
I was in like my high school, like mediocre BS choir.
Yeah.
Like everybody was a part of that choir. So that didn't really like highlight anything special in me. But I saw that article and I said, you know what? This is something I think I'd be really good at. And I don't know why I thought that. So my mother being the person she was like, okay. Let's do it.
That's awesome.
So I went and I I went to the audition, and I, like anybody would be, I was extremely nervous. And I remember the director asking me to sing my solfege, asking me to sing the scales and do these things. And I thought I did horribly, honestly.
And did you know all of that? Like the terminology and the theory of it all?
Well, I was taking music theory by that time.
Okay.
A little, that's when I really started like taking the theory of everything. And I got a call back the next week saying that you made it to the second round. And the second round was a dance audition because the choir was also like a choreographed folk dance choir because it was a big representation of Bahamian culture.
Yeah.
Not only did they do choral music, like choral classical music, but they also did folk choreographed dance, Bahamian cultural music. So I auditioned for the second time, and the second part of the audition. And I'm an amputee, and I'm like, okay, I gotta try my best. I gotta go out there and do whatever I can. And I passed the dance audition.
That's amazing.
And I remember the director during one of the rehearsals after I got in, he was like, "You dance better than a lot of these people with two legs." I'm like, all right, cool. So I guess that means I'm doing a good job. So that was my first experience and my first exposure to like really getting into music. And that choir has afforded me, like, just being a part of that group, so many opportunities to travel, so many opportunities to experience different types of music.
Yeah.
And I got voice lessons from a guy who I considered my mentor for a long time, Cleophas Adderley. He passed away 2 years ago, but he was a great, great man. He was actually a Bahamian icon, you can call him. Like, he's the one that formed the Bahamas National Choir. The choir was a cultural ambassador group for the country, and they traveled the world every year representing Bahamian music. So yeah, that was my first experience with getting into singing. And after that, I said, you know what, this is what I want to do. Then I went off to college and I studied private voice.
We'll get back to the show in just a moment. No, this isn't an ad read, but we do have a couple things that we'd love to share. I've been getting quite a few questions about how you can support the show. The truth is you're already doing it by listening. But if you're looking to do a little bit more, the best way is to support our show is to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Rating and reviewing truly does make all the difference for podcasts. So leave us a review, and in that review, tell us what your Pop 5 is, and we'll read it on the show. Another way to help us out is just following us on Instagram at MyPop5. We post short recaps of the show and include video or music clips that are referenced in the episode. They're some of our favorite pieces of content to produce. Anyway, thank you again for listening, and we'll get back to the show. What type of music were you singing with the Bahamian choir? Was it traditional music, or was it a mixture of like pop music as well? Or
yeah, it was just about everything. So during every annual concert, the first quarter would be classic choral music. All the stuff that people go, oh, what's next, right? Yeah. And then the second, I guess you would say the first third. The second third would be like Motown hits. That's
like a medley.
Like a medley, yeah. And then the final third would be all out, full colorful costumes, Bahamian music.
Celebration.
Yeah.
Was your family super supportive of your performing? Like, did they go to all the events?
Oh yeah, they loved it, and it's actually a pretty big like national thing. Like the shows always sell out, and whenever you hear the Bahamas National Youth Choir is going to be like a guest performer, people really dig it.
That's so cool. Yeah. That's like if the Olympics were ever held in the Bahamas, you would be part of the opening ceremony.
Right. Yeah, that would be incredible. Let's hope that happens someday.
100%.
That'd be awesome.
That's the bar.
Yeah, so it's a thing. The Bahamas National Youth Choir is a thing, and it's a great thing to be a part of.
So when you were at home and you were now part of this whole choir experience, was it were you going home and the music you were listening to was the stuff you were preparing, or did you have other musical influences around that time frame?
Sorry, ask me that question one more time. I kind of like zoned out.
Okay, so
he's over it.
I guess podcast is over. Ty is tuned out. Thanks for coming. No, my question was, I know when I was a kid, I did some choir stuff too, mm-hmm. And I had this situation where, I was really into singing, and my parents were basically saying, hey, your music teacher called us and they want you to go audition for this boys choir in Albuquerque. And I was like so set on it. And my music teacher was like, oh, we'll prepare a song, and so my teacher was like, you're going to sing America the Beautiful, right? Because it sits in your voice well, you sing it super well, and it's classical enough, right? Whatever, all this different stuff, right? And then I go home and I'm like, fuck that, I'm singing Kelly Clarkson.
Breakaway.
Right. I was super into American Idol at the time, and Kelly Clarkson
like
and just
this.
that was the song. That was legitimately the song. And so I'm sitting there singing A Moment Like This, and then like right before I walk in, my music teacher was there with me, and she was like, all right, let's sing what you're going to prepare. And I start singing Kelly Clarkson. She's like, oh, no. So to bring it back to my question was, when you were doing the choir stuff, were you super into the choir stuff, or outside of choir, were you like, I like singing, but I'm more passionate about these other songs more so than what I'm singing in choir?
Okay, now I heard your question. I promise I paid attention that time.
We'll see.
There will be a quiz at the end.
I was super into the choir stuff. Because that was my first exposure to like a legit choral ensemble. Would I say the same thing now about choirs in regards to my enjoyment of it? No, I think because I've been involved with choirs for so long that I've kind of burnt out from them. But in that moment, with that being my first legit exposure to choir, I loved every moment of it. I love what it stood for. I love that it was like a government sanctioned group that was responsible for ensuring that the music and the life form of my country was displayed in this way. And the choir itself, the reason I also loved it was because it traveled a lot. I went to a lot of different countries with this choir. I was able to go to South Africa with this choir, Germany.
That's so cool.
A lot of states in the United States, just representing, right? So even if the music wasn't attracted me to the choir, it was everything about it, so.
Where was your favorite place that you visited?
South Africa, for sure. We spent about, I want to say 9 days there. We went to Soweto, and we went to the house where Nelson Mandela was, he was raised as a kid, which is now a museum. Yeah. We went to the Zulu tribe. So we actually went to a few tribes. That was awesome. And I remember going to this town called Pretoria, and it was almost completely different from anywhere else in South Africa that we went to, because it was a rich city in a place that people kind of have this conception of it being completely poor. So rich that I stayed in a house with 3 other people, and we all had our own golf carts. And there were like 30 people in the choir. So each choir, like there were 3 people per house and golf carts. And we were like living like kings and queens for a few days in South Africa, right? So
that's awesome.
Yeah. And just experiencing like when you go to the tribes and you hear them sing, it's so much a part of their DNA. And to be a choir going to sing for them, we enjoyed more them singing for us because it was such a magical experience. So I would say that South Africa was my favorite spot.
How old were you during the choir years? I know you said 11th grade.
So 11th through, and 11th, 12th, then I went to undergrad for the first year in Minnesota. Then that summer, I also spent some time with the choir. Okay. So like 2 years, and then a summer. Okay. Was my involvement with it.
So here in the U.S., I know that, 11th grade for us, like you're almost expected to know what your whole career path is going to be, because at that point you're taking ACTs, SATs, and, having to kind of say, this is what I want to do. This is where I want to go to college, because everything in your senior year is kind of just getting you ready to complete and go on to the next point. So making a decision to start singing, when did you decide that that's when you wanted to pursue in your undergrad, and how simple was that since you came in so late to the activity?
I went into my undergrad knowing that I was interested in singing. I knew that I wanted to do music, but I wasn't serious about it. Yeah. So my first 2 years of undergrad, as I think a lot of undergrad first 2 years college students, I just partied, man.
You just blow it off.
Yeah. I didn't take my voice lessons seriously. I couldn't wait for the weekends to like hang out with roommates and friends. And I just got by. So freshman and sophomore year was me getting by. It wasn't until my junior year where I was like, you know what? If I'm going to graduate, I need to like really and graduate well. I need to really focus on, if this is something I really want, I need to settle down and do it. So it was my junior year, I would say, that I really got serious about singing. And
Did
yeah.
you know what kind of like career path you would want that undergrad to take you on? Did you have some kind of idea of what it looked like to you, or you just wanted to finish and then figure it out?
When I first started, I didn't know.
Right.
I started off as an education music major. So I thought about teaching, but then I realized that I don't have to be an education major to teach music. Junior year, I realized that I wanted to do opera.
Mm.
So, because my teacher kind of like really got it out of and made me realize that I was good at it. And I had a wonderful, wonderful teacher in my undergrad, private voice teacher. So I feel kind of guilty for wasting those 2 years with her. But we quickly caught up in those last 2 years, and we've become really dear friends since. And I think she understood that, hey, you're just you're straight out of, you just came from high school, you're trying to figure things out. I didn't always know exactly what I wanted, but at some point I figured it out, and here we are.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to move on to number 2 on your list. Mr. John Legend, when did you come across the Get Lifted and Once Again records? I know those were the two that you kind of enjoyed the most.
Yeah. The what's the first one? Get Lifted. That's the first album. Yeah. I came across that album after I watched his video of Ordinary People. Right? So good. Black and white.
All those ordinary people running around.
I was like, oh man, who is this guy?
That song was a game changer.
It really was. And so as soon as I saw that video, I'm like, I gotta know who this guy is, because he's got a voice that I want to emulate. And
when was this?
Whenever I was living in the Bahamas, so I guess right before college. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember when that song came out.
2004-ish.
Yeah, so it's old, right? So that was in high school, because I was probably a sophomore.
Wow,
which is crazy. So after that, I got the Get Lifted album, and I said, this is the guy that I will follow for a while.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because after the what's the other record called?
Once Again.
No, it wasn't the Once Again. It was the So High album, I think. That's the Once Again album?
It's Once Again, yeah.
Yeah, after that, I stopped listening to his albums. So I don't know why.
Yeah,
after that, you stopped, you said?
Yeah.
For any particular, or you just liked where those sat with you?
I liked where they were, and that was all
and you moved on?
Yeah.
So you don't know, there could be 3 other records that are just fucking gorgeous, but you're like, nope, Once Again is enough John Legend for me.
Because I didn't care for all of me. Like, I know a lot of, somebody might be upset at me for saying that, but like that song didn't resonate with me like the songs before did. So
do you have particular favorites from both records? I know Ordinary People, you said, was like a big one for you, but
Save Room is incredible. I just did that at karaoke a couple weeks ago.
Can we hear a little bit?
Yeah, do it, Ty.
Say that you stay a little, don't say bye-bye tonight.
Oh my God, John Legend is here.
I know.
So I put a little raspiness at the end. Did you hear that?
Yeah, your tail end of the notes, man, kind of really sells the John Legend.
I listen. So Save Room's a good one. Maxine from I think it's the Get Lifted album.
I think there are some song. I really love Ordinary People too. I think there's one that's super problematic on I think it's the first one, but we're basically, he's saying like,
doing it again.
No, it's like the one where I think Kanye's on the record too.
Oh yeah.
He's basically like, just because I cheat on you doesn't mean I don't love you.
Yeah. I don't remember what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
Right.
That's a good.
Man, I love on the second record, PDA, the Let's Go To
Yeah, that's one of my
Party.
favorites too. Yeah. They're good albums, man. What can you say? Like they were all so pure. Like it felt as if he was really singing to someone he really knew. Whereas I feel as if these new records are just like trying to sound good.
Yeah.
Maybe they do have deep meaning for him, but that's not what I got from anything new of his, right?
So I know, he had a big impact on you here, especially in terms of what you wanted to sound like. And then you also mentioned that in college, opera was something that your music teacher turned you on to. Was there a shift when you were like, I don't want to be a John Legend type singer and I want to be more operatic? Or do you still feel like both of them are still things that you kind of want somewhere in the middle, or for your career going forward?
You know what? Go ahead.
No, nothing. I was just like, what is that song from Get Lifted that I used to be so into? And it's Stay With You.
Stay With You is also one of my favorites.
Yep.
Sing it.
I can't. I'm like, it's coming back to me, but I'm like, I know that there's a song.
I will stay with you through the ups and downs. That's a good one.
As you can tell, after you sang, me and Ronnie are just like, oh, move away from the mic. Let me try to sing a melody. Let's go to the park.
But to answer your question, Ryan, one thing that I can never get by is having to choose. Like, why can't you have both? Right? Like, why can't I do opera and sing
100%
a John Legend song? I really consider myself a crossover artist because I do think that I have the vocal ability to cut back on the opera isms of my voice and just let it be a little bit more poppy whenever I need to.
Yeah.
So I don't think being introduced to opera diminished my desire to also want to sing popular music.
And has anybody like made you feel like you needed to choose?
Of
like
course.
even just in passing or as a teacher or as a
when you go to college
colleague or something?
Yep.
Really?
When you go to college to study music, especially voice, there's like you take this track or nothing, or you don't.
It's crazy.
Well, in my experience is that, especially in academia, pop music isn't an option.
Right.
Right.
So it's not like there is no choosing. It's opera or nothing, right? Or in my world, when I was going to school for music, it was concert percussion or jazz style drumming. There was no rock focus or folk music or how to be in a boy band 101 classes.
Yeah.
It's all, there's just academia is based on these old standards of music. And so all teachers I know from my experience in music school, this is the only option. So you're forced in this one way because they're not going to go over the Beatles with you or John Legend with you.
It's how it is with like theater too. If you do theater on like a collegiate level and you're there for your theater degree, it's very like the theory, acting theory, all these different methods, and not about when I graduate, how am I going to get an agent? How do if I want to do TV and film, what are the main things I need to know about a script? It's like, it's not that at all.
Yeah. I will say, though, where I am now at Arizona State University, I'm getting my doctorate there. The school is so, especially the voice department, is so diverse in what they have to offer and what they allow you to learn. We have a musical theater degree, we have an opera degree, and as of next fall, they're actually introducing a pop music degree.
Oh, wow.
So,
I mean, it's a whole other beast.
It's a whole other beast. And so I'm very excited to see what they do with that because it opens up doors for diversity, inclusivity, and just this whole idea that creativity shouldn't be something that's in a bubble that only says jazz and classical music.
Right.
So I wanted to say, I think to your point earlier about, or maybe it was Ryan's point, or both of your points, but about how in academia, because same thing here. I mean, I went to New Mexico State University and I studied not only trumpet performance and jazz studies, but music business. And the issue was that the music business degree wasn't accredited. So at the end of the day, even as a legit, musical, or the music industry basically didn't look at that as a viable degree. So I think it goes to say, like,
that's insane to me.
It is.
Yeah, it is. And so that's for one reason why I never really kind of stuck with it, and why it was hard growing up in Las Cruces, because that, I wanted to do things other than play music in the jazz idiom. And I think that in a similar way, the academic side of music pushes you towards that.
Sure.
It's like, if you're a vocalist, you're going to do opera. If you're in jazz studies, then you're going to try and get a gig with maybe a touring band, or you're just going to gig, play weddings and things like that. It kind of pigeonholes you in a lot of ways, which is great for the people because I've never had those opportunities. But that's just to say, maybe there is that kind of, the music industry still has that spontaneity. It's almost something that we can't put our finger on, the way that academia tries to, theorize everything. Maybe there isn't, because that's the thing about pop culture, is that it transforms so rapidly and in ways that people don't predict. And I think that it, academia doesn't always keep up with that.
Yeah, it's like staying updated on not even trends. Like these are things that have been around for so long, like different genres of music and learning different. And I mean, again, I'm not a musician. I'm the only person in this group that is not a musician, but it's the same thing with theater. Like stuff evolves, stuff acting evolves, film and television as opposed to theater. They're all different skill sets and one doesn't mean more than the other. Right. They all require tapping into a different part of the brain. And it's like the whole thing, even with collegiate athletes, how they're taught all of these things, but there is no class on how to manage their money when they get out of school and they're playing pro. Literacy. It's the same thing. And I think that's something that should change in a lot of degrees in college, for sure. And I think it was a singer. I can't remember if it was the lead singer of Heart, who was an opera singer and decided she wanted to be a rock and roll singer. If it was her from Heart or Joan Jett, I can't remember. It was some badass rock chick.
One thing I give studying opera credit for the fact that you learn a good foundation.
Yeah.
Right? And how to like really manage the voice well. Other than that, I mean, like creativity is creativity.
100%.
You should be allowed to create however you want to create. If you're being forced to create in a specific way, then I think you're stifled.
Yeah.
Your creativity gets put into a box.
Well, opera and certain and other instruments and like ballet are all perfect foundations to fork off into other styles. Mm-hmm. So ballet is always going to be a great foundation to have to dance contemporary or modern or hip hop or whatever it is. Same with voice. But yeah, again, just allowing the growth into other directions with the foundation and the discipline that opera teaches you, I think is vital.
Yeah, definitely.
So keep doing karaoke.
Keep doing karaoke.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned a bit ago that, I don't know why we'd ever have to choose. I think there's value in being able to sing opera, and you feel that you've done enough training and studies to be able to transition and do pop style music too, Mm-hmm. Have you ever found that there was any sort of difficulty doing that? I know that we had conversations, I know
where this is going.
Because we had a band, right?
Yeah.
We had a band called All Tied Up, mm-hmm. right? Named after you.
You guys were both in a band together?
We did, yeah.
At UNM?
So it was outside of UNM, but Ty and I met at UNM, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we had like a cocktail jazz lounge act that did some standard jazz tunes, but also did a lot of, pop songs too. Mm-hmm. So have you ever had any of those moments where you notice any sort of difficulty transition between the two?
Not difficulty, but I've noticed when there has been transitions, because I consciously make those transitions to make sure that my voice is working well. So if I'm going for high notes, I'm going to do something that I would probably do classically to make sure that I'm singing mm-hmm. them as comfortably and as efficiently as possible. Mm-hmm. And someone like you would probably notice that change, but for the average listener, maybe not. Mm-hmm. Right?
For tone deaf people like me.
Yeah, so you probably wouldn't
notice.
Right.
Yeah, that's interesting, because even just the other day, like watching those videos on YouTube that are like vocal coach reacts to, Brendan Urie from Panic at the Disco, like that. And the vocal coach is talking about, all of this technique that they probably learned in some type of conservatory. And there was a video of Brendan Urie reacting to a reaction of a vocal coach reacting to him. Mm-hmm. If you could keep up with that. And he was like, I don't even think about these things. I just do them. There's some people where they, they don't even really notice it.
Right.
And then, but that's kind of the point of theory and technique, is like you're breaking down what people do to sound great so that you can teach other people how to do it. But I just think it's interesting that, some people don't ever think twice about it. And, it's kind of just a knack to them.
Some people have a natural gift of knowing how to navigate life, and some people don't.
Yeah, I don't know. It just works out.
Yeah. Freddie Mercury never took voice lessons.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was a champ.
But I think he did. He would probably think about it differently. He would probably sound the same, but he would probably think about it differently.
Maybe, perhaps, yeah. I agree.
And I think there's people too who are not at all technical in what they do, like Bob Dylan, for an example, or, even Taylor Swift or something like that. She's not the best, technically trained vocalist, but her own character is what sells,
Yeah. I always go back to, and this is what I tell my students. I teach a lot of young singers. I tell them, I said, I would prefer for you to be expressive and not impressive. You have a lot of people that are teaching you how to be like impressive and have the best voice. But anybody can have a really good voice. It's what you do with that and what you do with your art that's important.
Right. Character.
The soul.
Yeah. So
I just want to be caught up on your timeline really quick. So you went to Minnesota first for undergrad?
Yes.
For a year?
No, I went for undergrad for 4 years.
Oh, I thought you were there for a year though. And then
and then I went back for the summer, back home for the summer.
Oh, but you finished your undergrad in Minnesota.
Yes.
Oh, so when you got to UNM, it was for grad school?
Master's, yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm caught up now. Okay, cool. What took you to Minnesota? Just
scholarship.
Scholarship and scholarship only.
Yeah. There's a connection between the Catholic monastery and a few of the high schools in the Bahamas.
Okay.
So a lot of Bahamians actually end up going to St. John's University in Minnesota because of the connection.
And that's where you went.
Yeah,
okay, gotcha.
Because of the connection with the monastery.
And what took you to Albuquerque?
Scholarship.
Scholarship and scholarship only.
My vocal coach in the Bahamas, Dr. Christy Lee, shout out if you ever listen to this. She knew my voice teacher in New Mexico, and she kind of recommended that I go and check him out and see if I liked the vibe, which I did, obviously. So I ended up there. So, yeah.
Awesome.
So I wanted to bring back, story of how I met you. At UNM, there's a music building, and in that music building, it sits under the basement of a large theater hall. And so you never see sunlight. There's no windows down there. There's just nothing but 60 to...
Inside like Popejoy?
Under Popejoy. So the whole music school is underneath Popejoy. Yeah. And there's like about 60 practice rooms, which are basically the size of a closet with a piano in there. And you can just go in there.
I think that's where I would take random film classes, because they were in Popejoy and they were through those like creepy white hallways.
Probably.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's where the music school was. And inside the corridor of all the practice rooms, where all you hear is just everyone butchering whatever etude they're working on at the time, there was a little lounge where there was little tables and chairs and stuff where people would hang out there in between practicing, or in what normally became just where everyone would go in between classes. Ty had just moved to New Mexico, I imagine, to start his master's, and I had already been in my undergrad for a few years. And I was walking through the halls, and Ty is just one of those people that is just introducing himself and just saying hi. And he's just that person where he's just going to say good morning to everyone. And, I normally kept to myself from my core group of friends, and I walk by and there's just this guy there that goes, good morning, and I was like, oh, hey, and then multiple times.
Hi, what do you want?
Exactly. And from my perspective, it looked like this dude just sat camped there for most of the day, And whether it's true or not, it could be coincidence, but I'm then leaving practice to go to another class, and then it's just, hey, how's it going, And there's this guy, Ty, and I was trying to think so hard before this interview, kind of what made our friendship blossom to where we actually had conversations more so than just hanging out in the lounge there. And what came to my mind, and I honestly don't even know if this is really where it started, but I was playing a gig for some sort of UNM event where a bunch of administrators for the college would go and play and wear suit and ties, they'd go and wear suit and ties and have dinner and celebrate each other, And I was playing this little jazz trio, and then Ty was there to sing the alma mater song. And he sang the alma mater. We were playing our jazz gig, and he comes up to us and he's like, you guys know this tune, and he just wanted to sing it, and I think this song was Autumn Leaves, and you just start singing Autumn Leaves, and we're trying to play the key with you, and then you're like singing another part of the song, and we're just trying to follow you, but it actually then the people like kept looking at us because Ty started singing, and so I don't know if it was just then a new perceived value of, dang, this guy can actually sing and hang with us, but that was the oldest memory I can think of when we first started to, really interact. Yep. When I fell in love.
We locked eyes.
He started singing John Legend, and that was it.
I do remember that moment. I do remember that. Those were good days, man. Those were good moments, really good moments.
Yeah, man. I miss it. I miss playing with you. That band was some of the most fun because I think we all had such different influences, everyone in that band, Eric and I have played so long together, both with, Pool Toys, the band we're in now. We had the Great States band before. And
Right.
I've played in so many projects with Eric that I think he and I just had this very locked in sound that
Right.
he and I could create. And so when we would bring in different influences like you and Devin, and even, when we'd have Sean Umstead come play, or Jared Goodrum, man.
Jared Goodrum. Oh my
That
God.
guy is like one of the best saxophone players ever. But everyone that you guys brought in, there's just this new sound, and it totally shaped what each band was,
course.
So the people we play with really is what made the projects, because Eric and I are just Eric and I, we're going to translate and try and do best. But when you guys bring in the character, it was really awesome.
Yeah.
So I miss those times.
And I do want to give a shout out to Eric, actually, because he was kind of instrumental in making sure that All Tied Up kind of had gigs,
Yeah, Eric.
Eric?
Eric, our roommate.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, we record the podcast here in my living room, and Eric is actually my roommate, and he is in his room on his
Right now.
computer right now. So we're talking about him, and
Well,
But
he's-
no, Eric's such a hustler, man.
Yeah.
I've been so lucky, and I think part of the reason I grew so much as a player is because he dragged me along with him. I came in as this new student who was only there to do school. And after I met him for when I was auditioning for the band, he was just like, every project he wanted to do, he's like, I need a drummer. Let's go do this. Let's go do this. And because he's such a go-getter, I was playing, so frequently.
Right.
And it was not practicing. I did practice, but it wasn't practicing, I think, that helped me grow. It was playing at all these gigs and realizing that I fucked up at this gig. And that's what I knew I needed to shed the next time I was in the practice room. Or it taught me that when I show up that I can't forget a throne for my drum set, because then I'm borrowing a chair from the restaurant that I'm playing at, and I look like a fool, So, man, Eric has been so crucial to my life and my development. And to your point, All Tied Up is the band, He was the reason we were able to play as frequently as we did, and
eat that delicious food from Blade's Bistro.
Oh, I know.
Right?
Placitas, New Mexico, if you're ever there, go to Blade's Bistro. Speaking of food,
Yeah.
next person on your list,
Ooh, say the
Gordon.
name.
Ooh, I'm so
Say the
excited.
name. Gordon.
Gordon motherfucking Ramsay.
Malois is Ramsay.
Oh man, I
just watched this episode of Hot Ones the other day.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, I was laughing so hard in that, man, because he can't take heat for anything, man. He was like on the fourth wing
Damn.
and already just spraying lemon juice in his mouth, and
God, I
gushing
love him.
it.
Master Chef. I
Master
just went
Chef.
back and watched a whole other old season. Ryan and I talk about Master Chef whenever we can. And then at the bar I work at, we're always quoting Gordon Ramsay.
Yes, please.
Anytime food comes up, I was telling Ryan if it's like a steak and it's supposed to be medium rare and it's like definitely more rare, we're all like, it's still fucking mooing. And anytime he eats something and it's so good, he's like, damn.
But even if it's good, like that's what makes it like deceiving. He'll just go, damn.
Yeah,
Good and bad. He'll
Yeah,
go,
I know.
if it's cooked, undercooked, he'll go, damn. Delicious. Damn.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so get into Gordon Ramsay for
Get
you,
into-
Ty, because we're excited.
When Hell's Kitchen first came out, I had no idea what to expect, right? And so this TV show comes on, and there's this guy just swearing at everyone in the kitchen
Yeah.
and you're like, who the hell does this guy think he is? But then you learn about him and his journey as a chef and the shit that he had to go through to get to where he is, to be like a 3 to 5 Michelin star. I don't even know how many stars he has. Probably has like 9. I don't know.
You
But
can only go up to 3.
Yeah.
So.
per restaurant.
Oh, correct.
Per
Oh, but like how
restaurant.
many
Right.
restaurants have 3
Right.
Michelin stars?
Right.
He's the only one that's ever got 9 Michelin stars.
Right. So he probably has like more than just 3.
Sure.
But I don't know. I liked the vibe of that show.
Mhm.
That he just wanted
Hell's
chefs
Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen. He just wanted his chefs to be great.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, obviously, the method in which he did it is very controversial.
You fucking donut.
But from that show, you can tell that he's a hard worker because he has other shows that came out after that. One that we all know is Master Chef, right? And you see a different side of him through Master Chef Junior. You also see that he's a human.
He's a
because
big softie.
He's a softie when it comes to that show. And I also enjoy cooking.
You're right.
I'm not the best cook, but I really enjoy. Because Ryan remembers that I bought like the Gordon Ramsay master class for $90.
But we did.
We bought it.
That's awesome.
Well, it's one of the coolest things because like Ty, when he was living in Mexico, didn't have the opportunity to go home for the holidays very much, and so he spent so many holidays with me and my family. Christmas Day he would spend with me and my dad and that side of my family. And so one morning when I picked him up for Christmas, he would do these Christmas morning gigs near my house, and then I would go pick him up and bring him back for the Christmas festivities, and we were like talking about getting each other Christmas gifts, and then we both saw that this Gordon Ramsay masterclass had come out, and we're splitting it half and half, right? And then he goes and logs in with his Facebook account. He's like, I got it. And I'm like, how am I going to access this? You put your Facebook details in there. It ended up working out, and he shared his info with me. But man, so we both pitched in, and that was our Christmas gift to each other.
Did he teach you? Because I know he has a YouTube channel now that's so about like just basic skills. Like his perfect scrambled eggs.
You like his scrambled eggs. I don't like his perfect scrambled eggs.
I haven't tried his perfect scrambled eggs yet. I haven't even tried to attempt it, but I did see it was a test on one of the MasterChef seasons.
You got to get sea urchin.
And it's like 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off, 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off.
Yeah.
Creme fraiche.
Too much work.
I think he does it on Hot Ones too at the very end.
He does, yeah.
Like after the last wing, he does his scrambled, like he makes his scrambled eggs.
Insane.
So you see it a bunch of different ways. So like on MasterChef and in Hot Ones, it's just a soft scramble. And
Dude, it's just a soft scramble.
Hang on, what I was going to say, it's primarily a soft scramble.
It's just a soft scramble.
But in the masterclass, like Ty was saying, he adds sea urchin and all this stuff.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And so that's what's crazy is because as we were watching it, there's so many times in that masterclass that it's just like, where the heck am I going to get cardamom pods or, saffron, all this different stuff. Like it's not stuff you can go down the street and get at Ralph's or anything like that.
Or that we would even know what to look for.
Exactly.
But he's also a very good instructor, which I think is awesome. Like there's an episode in the masterclass where he teaches you how to make fresh pasta. Even though he goes through it pretty quickly, like the steps are, you can look at it and you can be like, okay, this is what I need to do, and you can follow it. And just the idea that he makes you aware that you don't have to go to the grocery store you don't have to buy pre-made food. You can make really good food with what you have, right? Or just on a good budget. And I think he's really good at displaying that.
It's interesting that to say, because for instance, what you study and your profession is music and vocals, but you can still be so, I guess, intrigued by someone like Gordon Ramsay because of things like that. And I think as someone who's like a musician myself, do you feel like you will take those things, he's a great teacher. I like the way he explains things and kind of relate them back to what you do and how you view success and, really successful people. How did they get there? Do you think that that's what the intrigue is?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
And I would also
how they have discipline for themselves.
Yes.
And how they convey that to other people.
The discipline enough to know that you've learned so much that you can also now be creative because you've gained the knowledge necessary to make whatever you want.
Yes.
Right? You're at your best. And I think that's what attracts me to him.
Have you seen his new show on Disney Plus?
What's it called?
God, I can't
Gordon
remember.
Ramsay Uncharted, I think.
Uncharted, yeah. Very similar to like an Anthony Bourdain.
Oh, yeah. Like he travels and
he travels and he learns how to cook throughout the week, different specialties in the area he's traveling, and then he cooks a meal or a bunch of dishes for the locals who taught him.
Wow.
And yeah, it's super cool. I just watched the Hawaii one. It's really good.
I do have Disney Plus, so I should watch that.
So good.
I took the password from somebody, but don't.
Damn.
Disney's not going to sponsor us now.
Oh no! Sorry, Disney.
Yeah, they brought on some guy who's.
You can cut that out.
Yeah, edit that out. Do you have a favorite show? Either MasterChef, Kitchen Nightmares,
Hell on Wheels.
Have you 24? No, it's 24 Hell and Back. Yeah, which is basically Kitchen Nightmares on drugs.
I would say that MasterChef is it. I loved the most recent season. Did you guys watch it?
Yes, I did.
With Chef Dorian.
Hold up.
Oh, sorry.
Ryan hasn't seen it, but I have.
So I'm halfway through. So
You're halfway through,
Halfway through. Well, Ronnie technically already spoiled it.
but you forgot.
But I forgot, so that's good.
But I will say this: the winner, because we had the hurricane in the Bahamas. The winner went to the Bahamas, to that island, to like make food.
Oh my gosh!
Spent a week there just like making food to help the locals, which I thought was absolutely incredible. But MasterChef is. And I don't know how true it is that they're all only home cooks. I'll take it because they say that's what it is. But the fact that home cooks can go on this show and learn from these great chefs, Joe, Christina, Gordon, and blossom into like wonderful, wonderful cooks, I think it's absolutely incredible.
I believe it. I believe that they're home cooks. But my main, not gripe, but my main question mark about it is when they do these challenges and they all know kind of where to start.
Right.
But I'm assuming there's things that we don't see. I have a feeling that they give them
Like
time to
coaching?
have a rundown of what this technique even is. Like, what if they just have no clue?
So there's a Reddit AMA for it where a former contestant kind of breaks it down.
Yeah.
There are no classes, but when they're resting, they have basically can look at all these cookbooks and cooking resources to watch like activities. So on their downtime, they're just tasked to be researching. And that's why there's sometimes where the judges are
I'm like, how do they all know how to do this one super beautiful technique?
Right.
And they're coming from like a ranch in Montana.
Yeah. No, and that's why I think there's times where the judges are like, this is fucking ridiculous. Like, why haven't you been preparing?
Sure.
You know, like there's no excuse because we give you all these resources, but there are no classes other than when you see the ones where like Joe will say, this is how you make an egg yolk ravioli, you know?
Oh man.
Yeah.
Can't
like
wait to try that.
Those are the only times I think they actually get one-on-one instruction. Because other than that, it's just, you have to research on your own and expect that some crazy shit's going to be thrown at you.
Sorry. To kind of go back to like what Ty was saying, I think that's what's in my opinion, that's what's like fascinating about shows like that. Like, for instance, I'll compare it to Ink Master, if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like those game shows where people are still showcasing extraordinary talent and abilities, where it's like there is kind of that drama side to it, and you understand that they're playing up to the narrative, but you're still kind of witnessing someone do something extraordinary. So there is, I've always found that fascinating about certain shows. Even
just,
like American Idol, where it's like, oh, we know this might be super contrived, but these people are great, Even
musicians. Seeing like their backstories, it's like they'll be either teachers or I just watched the one where Dino won like 2 seasons ago.
Did you finish that season, Ryan?
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Cool. Okay.
Do you have a favorite winner?
You've had time.
I do have a favorite winner. It's the winner of the most recent season.
I love.
Don't tell me.
Yeah.
I just saw when Dino won, and that was very surprising to me. He's a huge question mark in my opinion about just like who he is in general. But it was like dancer, high school music teacher, like retired father, like the cleaner at the restaurant or whatever. All of this stuff I think is super, super way cool.
However, though, like MasterChef Junior, I think it was the most recent season. All of these kids come from like homes with like 3-story houses, and they seem to come from very wealthy families whose parents are like big business people, so they can afford to give them cooking lessons.
But they have to also be able to afford to take them out to Los Angeles and stay with them
and pull them out of school.
So that's kind of the I don't like that part of MasterChef Junior.
I don't really watch MasterChef Junior at all.
It's good though.
I like the one with, I don't remember her name, but she was like a little girl with
Benny.
short hair. Benny.
Yep.
She was the coolest, man.
She won. Yep.
Yep. Anyway, my favorite winner was Luca. Do you remember him?
I remember Luca.
Oh man, he was the coolest. His story was very much like he was in the first season and got cut before they made it, and he came back and ended up winning the whole thing. So, do you have I know this whole thing has been about Gordon. Do you have a favorite MasterChef judge outside of Gordon?
No.
Everyone else is garbage.
Joe has grown on me.
I love Joe.
At the beginning, I didn't care for him, like because he's been on the show like as a co-judge the longest compared to anybody else. And also Aaron Sanchez.
I love
think he's incredible. Actually,
he's probably my favorite after Gordon.
So I've had like this experience where like when it was first Gordon, Graham, and Joe.
Is Graham the one with the white glasses?
Yes.
I don't like that dude. I don't know why.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have no real reason.
Anyway, I did. That's fair. All right, we know Ronnie's list so far. I think with Graham, when he left and they brought in Christina, I loved that blend of them three. And then Joe left, and I was kind of happy at the moment because I had a similar experience where I didn't like Joe. He was annoying to me. But then when he was gone and it was like just Gordon and Christina and they had guest judges, I missed Joe so much. And then when he came back as a guest for one episode, I was like, Joe, please come back. And then they did like a rotating thing. And so, but I'm glad Joe's back.
Yeah.
He's really grown on me.
Because now it's Gordon, Joe, and Aaron.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Here in LA, Joe has a restaurant.
Osteria Matza.
Yep.
That's where you get that egg yolk ravioli.
That's where we're going on Sunday.
I mean, the original one's in New York, but there's a Milk Bar here now, which is Christina's.
You know, I haven't heard good things about Milk Bar. I've heard.
I'm not
the
crazy
opposite.
about it.
Maybe that's who I heard it from.
Yeah.
Have you been?
I went to the one in New York.
What'd you have?
Well, my problem is, this is probably why, hey, Milk Bar is amazing, everyone. Go try
Please
it.
sponsor us.
I'm not really a sweets person.
All right, well.
But my girlfriend is so into sweets, and so we went. But even for her, she said it was too sweet.
What was though? What did you have?
She had
the froyo?
One thing she had was a milkshake.
Okay.
And then we got a bunch of cookies to take home and try.
Oh.
And all of the cookies were just like
Too much.
straight sugar.
I want to try the soft serve and I want to try the birthday cake, and that's about it. I don't really care.
Yeah, the birthday cake looked incredible.
I don't really care to try anything else.
But it's all, I don't know, it's like so much frosting and just color. Not that the color has a difference, but like all the colory pieces of it just look like more sugar.
Just
like,
too much.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy that started Momofuku, like, got her to where she is.
No, I love her
So,
as a person, so.
Fucking watch it.
All right.
Should we move on to the next?
We shall. Ellen DeGeneres.
Yeah.
Dory from Finding Nemo.
Yeah.
Host of the Ellen Show.
Yes.
See how long I could keep
Great
going with
Oscar
this.
host
Great
who ordered
Oscar host.
pizza, pioneered that trend.
Oh, co-host on American Idol.
Co-host.
Yeah.
Star of her own sitcom, and then became an iconic woman to come out publicly.
LGBT icon.
Yeah, LGBT icon.
Creator of my favorite telephone game, Heads Up.
Love that game.
I mean, I found out about it because of you.
and just a genuinely lovely fucking person.
So how'd you discover Ellen? Why is she so
Yes.
impactful for you?
Where does she fall in the cake that is Ty?
Ty. Ellen came into my life. Hey, boo.
Hey, boo.
Ellen sponsored the podcast.
Yes. When I was actually, I think, beginning of college, because I remember being in my living room in the Bahamas at some point and watching it with my mom. And I remember being so closeted and being like, my mom loves this woman. I wonder if she would like be okay with me coming out because she loves Ellen. So I would watch Ellen with her all the time. And I love what Ellen stood for and the happiness she brought people on her show. And I still very much love Ellen for that. And so, yeah, she came into my life at a point when I was questioning whether or not to come out as a queer man. And
she was a huge inspiration.
she was a huge inspiration.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When did you actually come out?
Like, why should someone have to come out? Gosh, that's crazy. I never like blew bells and whistles and said, oh, hey, I like guys and girls. I never did that. I just, I've told people who I thought deserved to know.
Yeah.
So when did I come out? I haven't come out.
Okay.
But
When did your mom know?
my mom found out after I started. Oh, she knew. I don't know if I can talk about this on the podcast, but I was hooking
We
up.
can cut anything. We can cut
Cool.
anything.
I was hooking up with someone in the Bahamas. My sister walked in, caught like the guy ran into the closet.
Oh,
He went back into the
startling.
and then my sister just like she-
Literally
he
and figuratively.
Yes.
Wow.
Ran back into the closet.
That's pretty hilarious.
My sister just looked around and then she just left the house after she noticed like something was up. And then she called my mom and she said, I think that Chiko is with a guy. So she kind of outed me.
And that was
And
like senior year, 12th grade?
This was probably like around that time.
Yeah, high school. Yeah.
And I remember just denying it. I'm like, no, that didn't happen. Of course not. And then so a couple of weeks later, my mom decides to, have a conversation with me. I'm like, yeah, I am. So what? Like, are you going to disown me? And she didn't.
And was she like, no, dude?
No, but she was very hurt. She was very taken aback by that idea. Obviously, she's still coming around to it.
It's an adjustment.
It's an adjustment. Even when I dated my ex-partner from New Mexico, she had to wrap her mind around that. But I also had to wrap my mind around the fact that I have to live my life. So
yeah.
So when did I come out to my mom? When my sister told her.
When I was forced to.
Yeah.
I know Ellen had a big impact. You know, feeling confident about maybe identifying that way and being willing to, you know, share that with others. When did you first notice that you, were attracted to both males as well as females?
When I became aware of my attraction, definitely. So my last year of the 11th, around that time, it's been so long. I dated a girl for a long time, like for about, not a long time, like about 6 or 7 months. In high school times, that's a long time, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, my parents loved her. My parents were like, they still talk to her. They still, like, my mom still calls her on her birthday and wishes her happy birthday, et cetera, et cetera. And my attraction to her was diminishing, and I could not figure out why.
Yeah.
And then obviously because I was like also attracted to men, and I was dealing with that. So I remember I was traveling, and this girl had moved to North Carolina, and I was flying through North Carolina to go somewhere else. I don't remember where. So I told her, I said, hey, let's meet up. I haven't seen you in a while. I just want to say hello. So she came to my hotel room and we talked, and I said, you know what? I think the reason we broke up was because I'm gay. Right. And that at that moment, that's kind of what I described it to be. And she looked at me and she was like, I kind of figured. Like she could tell that that like shit was on my mind. What was your question? Sorry.
When did you first know?
Yeah,
you know?
So I think I knew when those feelings for her started to diminish, and I started like being attracted to the opposite sex just by like visually being attracted to guys. So maybe 11th, 12th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like everything in your story was 11th to 12th grade.
I know.
Yeah, a lot happened to me in those 2 years. Yeah.
I joined choir. I decided to start a whole musical journey. I started enjoying men. John Legend, Ellen, everything all came in.
Only his first 2 albums.
Yeah.
I'm beginning to think that your life didn't exist before 11th grade.
It didn't.
Once you were all cooped up in the house with 12 people, you were all just one being until finally you went out on your own.
I couldn't be myself then, right?
Yeah.
I had to go out on my own. So
when you got to the U.S. and you did your undergrad and your master's program, I mean, obviously, like times have changed and all of that stuff, but was it a struggle for you when you were in the U.S.?
Undergrad, definitely.
Yeah.
I was still kind of like figuring that out.
Yeah.
I went, because the way the college is set up is that you have an all boys campus and an all girls campus. At the same time,
whole campuses, like classes?
Well, we have 2 campuses, and we had classes together.
Okay.
Right. And I never came out, but at the same time, I went to a Catholic school.
100%.
Right. So it's like, how can you be yourself when you're in an environment that probably doesn't support this lifestyle? People call it a lifestyle, whatever. So I would like hook up with guys, but I would feel bad about it because I'm in this environment that didn't support it.
It's such a mind fuck.
It was a mind fuck. And then so much so that I would tell myself, okay, I need to go and like date a girl, only because that's kind of like the mentality that's what I should have been doing, right? But obviously that's not the truth. So then when I graduated undergrad, I dated a guy, hey Jared.
Hey, Jared.
And Jared and I spent 5 or 6 months together, and he was the person that kind of made me just really accept me for me. Like, I don't know what it was about him, but he was so much himself. And he and I started dating right around the time when like gay marriage became legal in all the states. That's a thing, right?
Yeah. Supreme Court ruled it. Yeah.
And I remember just seeing how fascinated he was by that, and how much he was able to just embody who he was. Yeah. And even more than just being a homosexual, he also made me appreciate me for me in terms of like my disability. Because before I met him, I very rarely wore short pants.
Really?
Right. And I don't know. There was just something about him that changed my outlook.
That's
on a
huge.
lot.
That's pivotal, I feel like, in someone's life.
Yes.
Like,
so sometimes we run into these people who we have relationships with and we learn something. Right?
100%.
And he was a person that I learned a lot from,
That's
which
amazing.
I'm very grateful for.
That's so cool.
What happened? Why did the relationship end?
I had to leave the state. I had to legally leave the country because I didn't make any provisions to stay in the country. My visa expired, and we tried to date like long distance for a little bit, but that wouldn't have worked in the long run. So
I think that there's still something like beautiful about that, though. 'Cause
of course.
It's like sometimes people come into your life and you have relationships with them. And yes, obviously, ideally, they last forever and all of this stuff. But sometimes they last the length that they're meant to last.
Seasonal.
And they teach you what they're meant to teach you. And then it's like, go, fly, be free. And I think that's really, really cool that, I mean, yeah, that's a huge thing for you to accept yourself in all of those different ways.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it must be really hard to justify that feeling while you're at this school that teaches you something else or that, at its core represents something else. And yeah.
Bringing it back to Ellen, do you have a favorite Ellen moment or something that, you remember having inspiring you in a way that, whether it has to do with your sexual identity or she was just fucking hilarious? Is there any sort of favorite Ellen moment that you had?
Whenever she's able to bring in just regular people to her show and just change their lives,
it's fat check.
And give them a fat check, yes. But even more than that, like it's people who are really struggling, right? And I remember she had a guest on her show multiple times who I think died from cancer. But before she died, she helped this woman out so much. After the woman died, she put her name on one of her seats.
Oh my gosh. I think I heard about that. Yeah.
Just knowing that there are celebrities out there that still are intact with their humanity. So if there's like to say that there's a specific moment, no, but moments like that I remember the most from Ellen's shows. Like the funny stuff we kind of expected, right?
Right.
But the really touching moments I think are the ones I appreciate the most.
Yeah. She has when I saw that she was on your Pop 5, I thought about this because I remember walking through the airport when the Time magazine cover came out of her saying, "Yep, I'm gay." And then her sitcom shortly after got canceled. And it was a huge deal. And like all the parent committees and all these, fucking groups were protesting and whatever. So she went through kind of hell and back, had to kind of not invent, but kind of like rise up again and find her footing again. And now from every group, even like middle America and moms and people that you wouldn't maybe really expect to be as accepting, and just everyone loves her. Yeah. And it's a non-issue.
And why do you think that is? That they love her?
I think because she's a lovely human to everybody.
And that's what I try to emulate, right?
Yeah.
There's this idea of doesn't matter who you love. I mean, just be a nice person.
Yeah, and I think she's just lovely, and she unites all these different kinds of people who I don't even think that they think about that. That's in the best, most beautiful way is such a non-issue.
Of course.
It's like that. Well, yeah, that's Ellen. But anyway, we need to watch her show because she's on today or whatever. So I think, that's huge.
Yeah. What's interesting is that right after the Ellen show, from what I remember, the Steve Harvey show would come on. And, it's crazy because if we want to look at it in the aspect of like race, I got more excited to watch this queer white woman on TV than I did a man of my race, because the topics that Steve Harvey talked about was more conservative than the conversations that Ellen talked about. So to see a person on TV that represented me, but have conversations that I didn't believe in, it kind of threw me for a loop, right? Like I expected this person who has risen up from a lot, especially when it comes in terms of race, to be open about a lot of things. Yeah. But he wasn't. So it was kind of cool to know that I could find inspiration in other people that's a way that's different from me,
I think one of the things that brings people into Ellen specifically is that her sexuality doesn't define who she is, right? And everything that she is she's an amazing person, an amazing comedian, and she's good at her craft before anything else.
Yeah.
Like her sexuality is, second to all of that, and I think people are able to admire who she is as a person and as a performer, that sexuality doesn't even necessarily need to come up, which is how it should be, right?
Right.
Seeing you put that on your Pop 5 tie was awesome, because I've seen that same stuff with you, right? It wasn't until very much later that I even knew that you were attracted to, and it's none of my business, right? And it should be the same for, everyone, but it's admirable to see that, and I see a lot of the same things in you as well.
Thank you.
I'm only asking this because I've heard through other friends, other interview subjects or whatever, that this may have been an issue. But did you find, maybe in the US, maybe in the Bahamas, when thinking and trying to understand your sexual identity, was it not more difficult because you only know your experience, but uniquely difficult in like the Black community?
Yes,
being a gay man?
Of course.
Yeah.
And I don't consider myself a gay man any longer. I consider myself just someone who's attracted to people.
Yes.
I cannot allow myself to be, because if I'm going to consider myself a creative person, I also have to, for my purposes, also consider myself just an open person to the world.
Yeah.
Right. So, but to answer your question, it is very difficult to be a queer person in the Black community.
Yeah.
Very difficult. Okay. So you just got to get to the point where you just stop caring.
Yeah, for sure.
Because there are many members in my family that don't agree with the way I live, but I just don't care, because they don't do anything for me.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's what I verbalized. I'm like, you've never been there for me, so why should I care about what you have to say?
100%. And I think getting to that point is huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
And especially when you've gotten to a point in your life where you take care of yourself.
Yeah.
Right. But there are people out in this world now that are still very closeted, who are older, but they're still in the closet because they're worried about what other people will think, even though they're independent. And I think maybe because they've been brought up in such a culture where it was even worse to be a queer person in their times.
Yeah.
But I just don't care. Yeah.
All right. Last one. I don't want to butcher the pronunciation.
Try it.
Sidney Poitier.
That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know who he is?
I
know him.
I do a little bit now after doing some research, but I don't know much about him other than, what I was able to read and view small clips of.
Yeah.
Why don't you talk about, I know there is a Bahamas connection there. Talk about kind of the impact he had and, why he's on your Pop 5.
I put him on there because he is a direct representation of a Bahamian moving to the United States and succeeding in a big way. He was the first Black man to win an Oscar, and he's from my country, right? So it's kind of cool to see that you can come from anywhere and make big change. So imagine what that must have been like for him moving to America, to be in film and to be on the TV where we're being watched by, people who could afford televisions, which was probably Caucasian white men and women, and to have won an Oscar based just on your talents. I think that's absolutely incredible. I've seen quite a bit of Sidney Poitier's movies, and they are moving. A Raisin in the Sun, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And my favorite is Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It's about he's about to marry a white girl, and the white family has a big issue, obviously. It's kind of like the Bernie Mac movie.
I was just going to say, with Ashton Kutcher. With Ashton
Kutcher, yeah, but in reverse.
Yeah.
Right?
Guess Who?
Guess Who, right.
Yeah.
It's the exact same
That's
concept.
probably exactly where they got it from.
Yeah. But at the end of the movie, the dad of the girl makes this very moving speech of acceptance. And I think that's where you get drawn into that movie just in that moment, to see that you would expect Sidney Poitier to make this big speech about how they need to accept him, but the father comes around and just makes this really incredible speech. He's just, he was good friends with what's her name, Maya Angelou, and Oprah is a really good friend of his. They all know each other. All these powerful figures, right, who stand for something bigger than themselves. And he's probably in his 90s now.
I was just going to ask, is he still alive?
Yeah, he's still alive. But he was pretty influential, not only to me, but for the Bahamas.
Was for the Bahamas, was he because he was maybe probably the only one acting, or at least the biggest one at the time, was he like the Michael Jordan, Michael Phelps of the country? Was
Yes.
everyone watching everything he did?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you mentioned that name and everybody knows it. Because we've had some successful people from the Bahamas, but I think he is the primary one. We had Rick Fox on the LA Lakers.
Mhm.
We have Buddy Hield playing basketball as well. All of our track and field athletes. So we had quite a few people come from the Bahamas that became really successful.
Kimbo Slice.
Kimbo Slice, that's right.
man.
Yeah. We've had some cool people come out of the country, but he's been so far. Now I'm on the scene, so we'll see what
Ty's
happens.
next.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, before we end up wrapping things up, what we do to kind of close out all the interviews is we have 5 questions that we're just going to send everyone out on. They're going to be real quick. So
Mhm.
Rapid fire.
questions for you. Okay.
Okay.
If you, this one kind of seems, might be something we already talked about, but if you were to be on a reality TV show, which one would you choose?
Ellen's.
Ellen,
Is that
that's
a
not reality.
reality
Oh, wow. Isn't it reality?
That's a talk
that's
show.
a talk show.
The Circle.
The Circle.
On
That's the
Netflix.
new one on Netflix.
Yeah.
I was surprised not MasterChef.
I know. I thought you were going to say MasterChef.
All right. If people have never consumed any of the work of the people on your Pop 5, what would be the first thing you want them all to go experience right now?
Ellen.
Okay.
Ellen.
As a vocalist, right? If you knew that you got the option to choose the last song you'd ever sing, which song would it be?
Ooh, I think only because we just recently sang through it, Make Them Hear You from Ragtime. It's powerful.
Oh, I kind of want to hear a bit of it.
I
I
know.
don't want to sing any of it.
Ah. We'll include a clip of maybe
Yeah.
you singing
Yes.
it. Okay.
Yeah.
What is a dream you have? Not necessarily a dream when you sleep, but I guess it can be a dream you have that maybe you've never said out loud.
This is rapid fire?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Even if it's something you've always been curious about trying, like through your whole life, like an alternate dream, maybe.
Okay.
Right?
Putting my visual art in an art gallery, I guess.
Oh, that's a good
Yeah.
one.
Hells
Okay.
yeah.
To keep with the theme of Pop 5, what are the last 5 words? Not last 5 words, sorry.
What are the last 5 words you ever want to say?
What are 5 things, 5 words that you'd tell a past version of yourself?
Forgive, learn, phrase, be safe. That counted as 3. That's 4. Love.
Okay.
I'm into it.
All right. Do you have anything you want to promote? Anything people to go listen to, watch?
I want you guys to watch a lot of Gordon Ramsay. Always do that. Watch a lot of Ellen. And just watch out for people who are crossing the street when you're driving.
Sounds good. Where can people follow you?
You can find me on Instagram at Tychiko, Tychiko. You can follow me on my website at tychiko.net or Facebook at Tychiko on my artist page.
Hells yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming, buddy. I love you so much.
I love you, my
Thank you,
friend.
Tychiko.
Thank you all. It's been a blast.
Bye.
Peace.
That'll do it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. We had a really fun time with Ty. And since we wrapped this recording, Ty wanted us to plug he has started a really awesome business in Arizona where he bakes fresh bread and cinnamon rolls. You can find that on Instagram at Broken Bread House, and that's spelled Haus. You can follow us on Instagram at MyPop5. And if you could, please subscribe and leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next week, and until then, what's your Pop 5?